My name is Emily Carter. I was never someone who believed in ghosts. That changed in the fall of 1998. I was 21 and broke, recently dropped out of college, and desperate for any job. So when my uncle offered me a month-long house-sitting gig in upstate Vermont while he and his wife traveled to Europe, I agreed without hesitation. The pay was decent, and the house, an old Victorian built in 1894, was beautiful. The house sat on a wooded hill, far from the nearest town. No neighbors, no passing cars, just trees, wind, and silence. It felt peaceful at first, the kind of peace that lets you sleep 10 hours straight. That didn't last long. The unease started the second night. I was brushing my teeth when I heard it. A low, dragging sound beneath my feet. The house had 3 floors and I was on the second. Whatever I heard came from the basement. At first I thought it was mice or old pipes. That's what I told myself. But it happened again the next night. Louder. Closer. On the 4th night, I finally went down to the basement. The door was heavy and swelled with age. The air changed the second I opened it. Damp, cold, thick. I stepped down the creaky wooden stairs, flashlight in hand, sweeping it across the cracked stone walls and shelves of old tools and rusted jars. Nothing. But as I turned to go back up, I noticed something strange. On the floor, a square outline in the dust like a hatch. A wooden slab with a metal ring. It was a cellar beneath the basement. I hesitated. Everything in me said not to touch it. But curiosity is louder than fear sometimes. I pulled it open. The smell hit me first. Rot, mold, and something worse. Something animal. The hole was pitch black. I couldn't see the bottom. I dropped a stone inside and waited. No sound. That night, the dragging sound was replaced by whispers. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew they were coming from that hole. My dreams were filled with shadows crawling up from beneath, clawing at my bed. I started locking my bedroom door at night. On the 7th night, I woke up to the door creaking open. It was 3:12 a.m. I remember the exact time. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. The hallway was dark, no movement. I was alone, at least I thought I was. Then the scratching began. It wasn't at the door this time. It came from inside the walls behind the headboard. Something was moving in there, scraping, crawling. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard breathing. By the 10th night I was hallucinating, or at least I hoped I was. I saw figures at the edge of the woods. A man with no eyes standing outside the bathroom mirror. A woman crawling across the ceiling in the living room. Every corner of the house felt alive. Watching. I called my uncle. Told him something was wrong with the house. He laughed it off. "Old houses make noises," he said. "You're just not used to the isolation." But I wasn't imagining the cellar. On the 12th night, I went back down, this time with 2 flashlights and my phone recording. I opened the hatch again. The same smell. But this time, I saw something. Steps, carved into the dirt, leading down into the black. I descended slowly. My flashlight flickered, then died. I turned on the other. It was weak, barely cutting through the dark. I made it about 10 steps before I saw it. A wall, carved with names, hundreds of them, scratched deep into the stone, and beneath them a sentence in red paint, or maybe something worse. "We were never alone." Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, but no one was there. Yet I wasn't alone. I felt it. A whisper, right in my ear. "Go back." I ran, tripped, slammed the hatch shut and nailed it with boards. That night I slept with the lights on. But it didn't matter. I woke up covered in dirt. My feet were muddy. The hatch was open again. I lasted 2 more days. On the 15th day, I left. I didn't even pack. I just ran, drove to the nearest town, and refused to return. My uncle had to hire someone else to collect my things. I never told him what I found, or what followed me, because something did follow me. Every few months I wake up to dirt in my sheets. Sometimes I find scratches on the walls. Once I found a name carved into my bathroom mirror. It wasn't mine. It was my uncle's. He died last year. Heart failure, they said. I don't think it was natural. Last night I heard the whispers again. And when I turned on the light, the dirt trail was back, leading from my closet to the foot of my bed. I know it's coming for me next. Because we were never alone. We still aren't. My name is Daniel Price. I've never spoken about this before. Not to my family, not even to my therapist. But if I don't tell someone, I fear it'll all happen again. In 2003, I was a graduate student in psychology at Rutgers University. As part of our final year fieldwork, we were assigned volunteer hours at different psychiatric facilities across the state. While others were posted to modern centers, I was sent to the Briarcliff Asylum, an abandoned institution tucked deep into the woods of Sussex County, now being converted into a mental health museum. The plan was to assist a local historian, Dr. Elaine Wexler, in cataloging old patient records and documenting the building's history. Simple enough. I liked old buildings, and ghost stories never fazed me. That first day, I drove through winding, fog-covered roads, eventually arriving at a rusted gate. Beyond it, the asylum loomed, massive, decaying, and absolutely silent. 3 stories tall, its shattered windows looked like empty eye sockets. Vines crept up its cracked stone face. Dr. Wexler greeted me at the entrance. She was in her 60s, sharp-eyed, brisk, and utterly professional. "Stay out of the East Wing," she told me bluntly. "It's structurally unsound. We catalog only the West Archives." That restriction was the first red flag. Inside, the air was stale, carrying the scent of rot and mildew. Peeling paint hung like streamers from the ceiling. The halls echoed every footstep. She led me to a small office space lit with a single bare bulb and handed me a box full of yellowed patient files. Most were routine: paranoia, schizophrenia, depression. But one file caught my eye. Patient number 316. Name, Marion Elridge. Admitted, 1932. Diagnosis, hysterical delusions. Note, insists she hears the bell, screams when restrained, believes something lives in the bell tower. "Is the bell tower still standing?" I asked. Dr. Wexler gave me a sharp look. "It's been sealed since the 50s. Don't get curious." But I was curious. That night I stayed late after she left. I walked the western halls using my flashlight. The place groaned like an old ship, floors creaking under my weight. Every hallway ended in darkness. Then I heard it. A bell. Faint. One slow toll. I froze. There was no electricity. No functioning bell. Yet I heard it again, closer this time. I packed up and left. The next day, I asked Dr. Wexler directly, "Was there really a bell tower?" She nodded reluctantly. Patients claimed it rang by itself. The staff chalked it up to mass hysteria. The tower's stairs collapsed decades ago. I couldn't stop thinking about it. That evening, I found a set of old blueprints. The bell tower connected both wings, accessible through the forbidden East Wing. I broke the rules. I slipped through a cracked door into the East Wing. The temperature dropped instantly. The walls were darker here, mold devouring the plaster. My flashlight flickered. Somewhere above me, I heard dragging. The corridor ended in a staircase, blocked with broken beams and debris. But I saw a narrow crawl space to the side. I squeezed through, heart pounding, scraping my arms on rusted nails. At the end, I found a spiral staircase, rusted, trembling, but intact. And above it, the bell. The tower room was circular, open to the night air. The bell itself was massive, covered in grime and spider webs, but intact. No rope, no mechanism, just metal and silence. Then the air changed. It grew heavy, charged. My flashlight died. The bell tolled. I didn't touch it. I swear on everything, I didn't. It rang once, then again. Behind me I heard footsteps. I turned. No one. Then I saw her. A woman in a patient gown, barefoot, her head tilted, hair hiding her face. She stood motionless in the corner. "Marion," I whispered, though I didn't know why. She moved. Her head snapped up, and her mouth opened impossibly wide. No scream came out, only the sound of the bell echoing from inside her. I stumbled back, nearly falling down the stairs. She began to float. No footsteps, no movement, just rising toward me, her mouth still open, eyes black. I ran. I don't remember how I got out. I woke up the next morning in my car, parked halfway down the road. My clothes were damp, my shoes muddy. I called Dr. Wexler. No answer. I drove back to the asylum, but it was locked. A construction sign said it had been closed for weeks. Later, I learned something worse. Dr. Elaine Wexler died in 1994. Heart attack. No one had been cataloging Briarcliff since then. I was alone the whole time. But I know what I saw, and I still hear the bell. Sometimes at night, just as I'm falling asleep. One slow toll, and every time I hear it, I wake up to muddy footprints at the foot of my bed. My name is Claire Monroe, and I was 13 when I saw something I was never meant to see. It was the summer of 1995. My parents had recently separated, and my mother, needing time to rebuild herself, sent me to spend the season with my grandfather in rural Kansas. He lived alone in an aging farmhouse surrounded by endless fields of corn. It was the kind of place where the wind never stopped blowing and the silence felt too heavy. Grandpa was quiet, strict, and deeply superstitious. He believed in signs, omens, and old rituals. He never explained them, just followed them like sacred law. There were things I couldn't do: whistle after sunset, go near the silo at night, or ever, under any circumstances, enter the cornfield after dark. He didn't explain why. He just said, "The harvest man walks when the sun goes down." At first, I laughed it off. A local myth? Maybe something to keep kids in line. But every night, Grandpa would light a small lantern, place it at the edge of the field, and whisper something into the wind. Then he'd lock every door and window and refuse to speak until morning. The first week was boring. No TV, no radio, just chores, the buzzing of flies and the rustle of corn leaves in the wind. But on the 7th night, something changed. I was brushing my teeth when I heard it. A whistle, soft, just outside the window. It wasn't Grandpa. He was in bed. I checked. I crept to the window and pulled the curtain back. At the edge of the cornfield, the lantern flickered violently as if someone were standing over it. Then I saw him. A tall figure, barely visible, his limbs too long, his body thin and bent in unnatural ways. He didn't move like a person. It was more like twitching, jerking, a puppet with no strings. He wore a sack over his head, or maybe it was his head. I couldn't tell. I gasped and stumbled back. The whistle stopped. The next morning, the lantern was gone. Grandpa said nothing, but I could tell from his pale face that he knew. That day, he slaughtered the chickens, salted the windowsills, and nailed horseshoes above every doorway. When I asked why, he just looked at me and said, "You saw him, didn't you?" I didn't answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, listening. At 2:13 a.m., I heard it again, whistling. Closer this time. Slow, deliberate, like someone enjoying the tune. Then came the scratching. It started at the back door. Light, then harder, then footsteps on the porch. Grandpa stood in the hallway, shotgun in hand, his face soaked in sweat. "Don't open your door," he said. "No matter what." He went downstairs. I heard the back door creak open. Then silence. Then a scream. Not my grandfather's voice. Something shrill. Inhuman. I covered my ears and rocked in bed until daylight. In the morning, Grandpa was back, pale, shaking. He had dirt on his boots and blood on his sleeves. He refused to speak. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. On the 10th day, I went into the barn to feed the goats. That's when I saw the scarecrow. It hadn't been there before. It stood in the middle of the cornfield. Tall, dressed in tattered clothes, a burlap sack over its head. But something was off. It wasn't mounted to anything, it was just standing. I told Grandpa. He bolted the door and said we'd be leaving soon. That night, he gave me a pendant made of old wood and string. "Don't take this off," he said, "even if he calls your name." At midnight, I woke up to tapping at my window. I lived on the second floor. I slowly turned over. The curtain fluttered. Then I heard it. "Claire," my name, whispered slowly, drawn out, from outside. I froze. Every hair on my body stood up. I didn't move. Then came the whistle, low, almost playful. I covered my face and waited for it to stop, but it didn't. The next morning, Grandpa was gone. His truck was still there. The house was locked from the inside, but he had vanished. Only one thing was left on the porch. His shotgun, snapped in half. I called the police. They searched the property for days. All they found was a trail of footprints leading from the back porch into the cornfield. They stopped in the middle of the rows, right where the scarecrow had been. But the scarecrow was gone. I was sent back to my mother, who never asked why my hair turned white at the roots. I didn't tell her. I didn't tell anyone. Years passed. I tried to forget. I thought maybe it had all been some horrible dream. Trauma. But last week, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a single photo. A scarecrow. In a cornfield. No pole. Just standing. And behind it, barely visible, something tall, thin, with a burlap sack over its head. Today, I started hearing whistling again. I live in the city now. There are no fields. No corn. But last night I looked out my window. There's a man across the street under the street lamp. Too tall, too still, and I think he's wearing a sack over his head. The whistle's getting louder. Rain pounded the corrugated roof in uneven rhythms, like the frantic heartbeat of something wounded. The only light in the cottage came from a single lantern swinging over the kitchen table, its flame flickering against the peeling wallpaper. I crouched beside the hearth, clutching a rusted key, a key I'd found half buried in the soggy earth outside, wondering if unlocking that bedroom door would plunge me into a nightmare I could never escape. I never planned to spend the night here. When the car stalled on that forgotten country road, I thought I'd simply walk until I found help. Instead, I discovered this cottage, abandoned and broken, with windows boarded from the inside and no footprints leading away. Something about the place called to me, a whisper beneath my ribs urging me forward even as dread slithered up my spine. My first hours passed in cautious exploration. The front door opened with a long groan, revealing a hallway lined with dozens of doors, each locked, each bearing a tarnished brass plate stamped with a name. Martha Daly, Joseph Klein, Rebecca Chang, the names of people who were never seen again, their stories wiped from every record. Their lives ended here. By midnight, the lantern guttered, and I lit candles found on a dusty shelf. That's when I heard it. A soft humming, as though someone stood just beyond the walls, singing a lullaby I couldn't quite place. The air grew colder, and the shadows lengthened until they pooled in corners like spilled ink. I crept toward the nearest door, drawn by the key's promise. It fit at once. The lock clicked, and the door swung inward on cracked hinges. Inside, the only furniture was a narrow iron bed and a chipped vanity mirror clouded with age. On the pillow lay a single photograph, a smiling child, no more than 6, holding a ragged teddy bear. On the back, written in neat cursive, was a date, October 13th, 1927, and a name, Eleanor. A sudden gust snuffed my candle. Darkness closed in. I heard a shuffle behind me like shoes scuffing against wooden planks. Heart thudding, I ignited the candle again. The figure of a little girl stood by the window, her face pressed against the glass. She wore a faded dress and clutched something close to her chest. I froze. The years fell away, and I was staring at the Eleanor in the photo, her dark eyes empty, her mouth curved in a mournful smile. I gasped and stumbled backward. When I turned, she was gone. Shaking, I fled the room, the humming rising in volume until it became a chorus of children's voices, whispering, laughing, crying. Each voice tugged at me, pulling me deeper into the labyrinth of doors. Some rooms held more photos. Families, couples, solitary figures. Each one marked with a final date, the day they vanished. In one, a man sat at a piano, stiff as stone, his hands still poised over the keys. In another, a mother knelt beside an empty crib, her face etched with sorrow. Every photograph seemed alive, the eyes following me, pleading. By 2:17 a.m., the humming became a chant. Stay with us. Stay. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the voices seeped through the wood, through the stone foundation burrowing into my skull. I ran to the kitchen, heart hammering. The lantern lay shattered on the floor. In its place was a pile of keys, dozens of them, each identical to the one in my hand. They glinted in the candlelight, taunting me. I realized then, every door, every missing person, every photograph in this cottage was connected. The key would open every room, and every room led deeper into their world. I grabbed my coat and backpack. I had to escape. As I reached the front door, a child's lullaby began, soft and sweet, rising from the floors below. The boards creaked with footsteps, too many to count, closing in. I yanked at the locked door. It refused to budge. Behind me, the humming grew frantic, then shattered into shrieks. In desperation, I hurled the keys at the padlock. One struck the hasp. The lock splintered. The door burst open and I tumbled into the rain. Outside, the air was fresh, the night silent. I raced down the overgrown path, slick with mud, until I collapsed on the shoulder of the road. Dawn found me under a red telephone booth, cradling the rusted key. My clothes were drenched, my hands bleeding. The cottage was gone, no sign of it on any map, no boarded windows, no overgrown path. I tried to tell the police. They smiled politely and suggested I get some rest. No missing persons matched those names. No child named Eleanor had disappeared in 1927, or ever. I kept the key. Every night now, I wake to the faint sound of humming, rising from some hidden corner of my home. The key sits on my bedside table, its metal cold and unyielding. I know what it can open, and I know that if the door ever appears, if someone leaves a padlock on my front door, I will have to use it, because the voices will call me home, and there is always another room to unlock. I was never supposed to hear the tapes. If I hadn't taken that shortcut through the woods, if I hadn't gotten caught in the rain, I wouldn't have found the house. But that's how these stories always start, don't they? With a choice so small, it seems harmless, until you realize you stepped into something ancient and waiting. It happened in the fall of 2017. I was hiking in upstate New York, trying to disconnect from everything. No cell service, no emails, just me and the forest. Around noon, the clouds turned black. Not gray. Black. Like someone pulled a sheet over the sky. The rain hit like needles. I sprinted through the undergrowth, slipping, gasping, soaked to the bone. That's when I saw it. An old house partially sunken into the earth by the edge of a fog-covered lake. 2 stories tall, its windows boarded from the inside. Ivy covered half the roof. No road, no mailbox, just the house and the lake. The front door creaked open with a light push. I stepped into a hallway choked with dust. Everything was gray and wet. The scent of mold hit me like a wall. But the house wasn't empty. A generator purred faintly from the basement, and on the kitchen table sat a cassette recorder still warm with a tape inside labeled, "Do Not Play, Session 6. I played it, static at first, then a voice, male, low, shaking. It's 2:33 a.m. She's here again, scratching at the windows. I locked all the doors, but she doesn't need them. She just watches now, just watches. The voice cut out, followed by a deep, wet breathing sound. Not human. My stomach twisted. I looked around the kitchen. On the walls were photos. black and white, all of the same woman standing by the lake. Her face was always slightly turned away, but something was wrong with her neck. Too long, too thin. Another tape lay by the sink. Session 5. I pressed play. She came from the lake, the man whispered. Not swimming, not walking, rising, like smoke from the water. I paused the tape, turned slowly to the back window. The lake was just a few yards away now. The fog had moved closer, and something stood at the edge. She was thin, pale, her wet dress clinging to her body. Her arms hung unnaturally low, fingertips brushing the surface of the water, her hair draped across her face like kelp. And though I couldn't see her eyes, I knew she was staring at me. I dropped the tape. The woman tilted her head, slow and deliberate. The sound of bone grinding echoed across the water. I ran. I don't remember how I got upstairs. I only remember slamming a bedroom door behind me, chest heaving. The room was freezing. A small tape deck sat on the desk, a final tape already in it. Session 7, last one. I pressed play. She's in the walls now, the man said. She won't let me leave. I tried to burn the house, but the fire died. She doesn't like fire, she only wants... The tape hissed. Then a new voice, one that didn't belong to any man. It sounded like gurgling water speaking through cracked vocal cords. Come to the lake, it said. The window shattered behind me. Wind roared into the room. I turned. She stood just outside the broken window. No expression, no movement, just waiting. I backed toward the hallway, heart hammering. But every window now had her outside it. 5, 10, 20 of her. All identical. All watching. Some were upside down, their necks twisted unnaturally to face inside. I ran. The house had changed. The front door was gone. In its place was a mirror, fogged, streaked with handprints from the inside. My reflection wasn't mine. It was her, hair wet, neck elongated, mouth gaping, but no scream came out. The reflection raised its hand. So did I. Then I moved. But the reflection didn't. It smiled. I blacked out. I woke up in the forest, miles from where I had been, mud-caked, shaking, the taste of lake water in my mouth. The tapes were gone. The house was gone. Only the fog remained, and the photographs. Every night since, I find new pictures taped to my mirror. She's getting closer in each one. First by the lake, then outside my window. Last night she was in my bathroom. Tonight I heard static through the wall. A cassette recorder clicked on by itself in my closet, and her voice whispered through it. Session 8 begins now.